Hey there, I'm Jama, and over the past few years, I've become very interested in onomatology, the study of names. I've never really liked my name until I researched the meaning of it. My name means paradigm shifter, and I'd like to shift your paradigm by shining a light on onomatology and how it can potentially help you find your purpose, help you communicate better with others, or even both. In each episode, I ask someone 8 basic questions regarding their first name. So sit back, relax, and try to shift your paradigm with this next episode. All right, so on today's episode, I am very excited for this conversation. This person I don't really know all that well, but I met him when I was on a work trip, and I'm just so excited that he's pumped to be here. So welcome to the podcast, Dathan.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So before I jump into the 8 questions, if you can just please tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, something you're passionate about, whatever you want to share.
So I was raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and lived in Denver for about 14 years before moving down here to Atlanta, Georgia. I moved down here to be closer to family right after grad school because um, I wanted to be fun uncle locally. Got two, at the time it was two nieces, but my brother and his wife told me that they were pregnant with baby number three, and I just knew, okay, it's time to head down. In the process of selling my house, I met my wife. She worked for the real estate company that sold my house. Um, we now have two incredible little girls, Marley and Isla. So I get to be Jungle Gym and role model to them. It's just such a great life that we have down here. What I'm really passionate about, I'm so passionate about photography. Um, I think that it's the closest thing to a time machine we'll ever get. Uh, we print so many photos. There's just so many printed photos around our house because I ultimately think that in time, people want to know where they came from. I think it mirrors this podcast a lot, in that when you ask someone about their name, it's the first piece of their identity. And I think ultimately, as we age, we want to look back on where we came from. I'm in a really privileged position as a photographer to be able to, as I say, illustrate the pages of your life story, because I think every story is better with pictures. So instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, your grandpa had this type of smile, it was so amazing," you can show it, and it just transcends words. So that's one thing I'm really passionate about. The other thing I'm really passionate about is people, in particular, helping people make a little bit of a change in their life, and hopefully that spark turns into a roaring fire in time, of course. So um, I started coaching as I was going through some hardships, um, and it's really lit a fire that I never knew could burn so bright. Between photography and coaching, I found a way to blend both of them, and I'm a coach that runs a practice called Future and Focus Coaching and Consulting. Focus is serves multiple roles in that title. One is focus because I have ADHD, obviously very important component to ADHD, or at least controlling it. The other side of it is focus from a photography concept, and that's important because a focal point shifting forward or backward changes the entire magnitude of the image that you're looking at. Please try it with any photo that's meaningful to you, but you'll quickly see that if focus was shifted on the thing in the background versus the thing in the foreground, it's a completely different image. And the last piece is the future focus. Part of my tagline is change your focus, change your life. And I truly believe that, just like with an image, the power of that image being changed based on its focal point. I think that whatever you are truly focusing on in life, um, if you shift that focus somewhat, it can change where you're going. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I could not agree more with what you were saying about focus, and it's very powerful what your mindset and how you shift that focus can be in your life. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and just jump into the first question.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So,
Feel like
without
I was in the
using,
driver's seat when we met, and
yeah,
now you're in the driver's seat. Should we
yes,
tell people how we met?
yeah, let's do it.
So, so dear listener, uh, as a small business owner, like we're always, trying to supplement our income, and there's no better time to, go out and hang a shingle. That's my plug for taking a chance on yourself. That's first and foremost. But what I've chosen to do, in order to bring that extra income, I drive for Lyft. I tried DoorDash and delivering packages, but it's shit. I just can't sit with my thoughts with a whole bunch of boxes in the background, especially not food and in my car without getting hungry. So I love being around people. And it was the end of the night. I was driving home, and I told myself that I was just going to just get one more ride request. It was so close to home, and the ride request that came in was Jama and a traveling companion, and it was going to the airport, which is like 25 minutes away. And I debated for as long as I could before finally just hitting accept. And that's what landed me here.
That's interesting because even I debated asking the person who I was riding with if I could ride with her. And then I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and ask her. And then she was like, yeah, come join me. So I think this is like all like supposed to be.
I think so. So I we hit it off so well once you and she got in the car. But while I was waiting, I saw who I thought was her in the lobby. It looked like you were checking out, and I was watching the clock tick down, and I was so tired. Just sitting behind the wheel, especially at night in a big city, your attention is just going everywhere. You're looking at shadows and who's getting in the car and weird drivers, traffic. Um, I was just like, okay, I could probably cancel this and just skate out of here. But nope, I stuck it through. I committed to
Yeah.
it. And yeah, besides that, look, man, if you're out there trying to make money,
Yeah.
do it. So that
Yeah.
is so awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you did it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great way of making these random interactions we have, making them a little bit more intentional. It's really great that we get to capture that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's get into it.
All right. So, without using Google and prior to me asking you this, did you actually know the meaning of your name?
I did. I
Yeah.
did.
And so, what do
Um,
you think your name means?
so if I remember correctly, it means fountain, I think, um, in Hebrew.
Hmm.
And I believe, well, I know that this was a person in the Bible. Dathan was a person in the Bible. Um, I did not know that for the majority of my life, but when I found out, I think it's a hilarious story.
Yeah, well, and I had never heard of your name until you told me in the car the story and the movie The Ten Commandments. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, now, yes, I have heard that name before. I totally forgot about it. It was the one and only time that I've heard of that name. And so I was
yeah.
like, wow, that's so powerful. Like, I actually really love your name. It's so cool.
Really?
Yes.
Man, okay, that is what do you love what do you love about it?
I like the letters. I like how it
Okay.
has two A's. I like how I've always liked the name Nathan, and so it sounds very similar.
Mhm.
And the meaning. So
Okay.
you hit the nail right on the head in terms of it does derive from Hebrew origins. It
Yeah.
means fountain, spring, or well. And I
Okay.
peeled the onion a little bit further. So I looked up the word fountain and what does the word fountain symbolize? And it symbolizes life, purity, renewal, and divine abundance.
Hmm.
So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about the symbolism of fountain?
Um, it's fitting in the sense that I've been told that sometimes speaking with me is like trying to sip from a fire hydrant. Um, that I think that'd be the first one.
I think you're full of life. I
Thank you.
love your personality.
Thank you. The
Yeah.
fountain aspect, actually, yeah, I could see. I would need to think on it for a minute, which is
Okay.
interesting because, when we talked about it, I've had like ample time to think about, the name fountain and what it means to me. The aspect of, life, um, is really cool because I do think that I think life is just look, life is hard for a lot of people right now. And I would
Mhm.
I would say all the time, right? Life is always hard for people in varying degrees. As life becomes more difficult for more people, or it's felt in more universal ways, um, I think that's when we start talking about life a lot more openly with people and the things that really matter in life. And well, at least we don't have, or at least we're not this. Growing up in the ways that I did, uh, I'm lucky to be where I am. I didn't have the best upbringing, and statistically, as a black man, um, originating from that type of childhood, uh, I just shouldn't be where I am. I shouldn't have the richness of relationships that I have. I shouldn't have the financial means that we have. I shouldn't have the future outlook, right? You know, and and I don't think I'm saying anything like super esoteric. I think that you can just look up American statistics of the criminal punishment system and Black Americans, and you can kind of see where I'm going there. So to that
Mhm.
end, I think I've just learned to appreciate life even when life is really effing hard.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something hard about your life. I think I'm on a constant quest to have better problems in life, but I know that there will always be hardships. I just want better hardships than we currently have.
Yeah.
But I still nonetheless appreciate my life. If I were on my deathbed with 2 minutes left to live, you know, I can't think of anything in my life right now that I'd be like, why
Yeah.
that? So
Yeah.
yeah, the piece that you said about life, um, is important. Yeah.
Okay.
As we're talking about this, I am getting something about the fountain, like a fountain and a spring and flowing water. For me, I think I go back to Colorado and being able to be near a river. I grew up, we had a cabin and there was a river that was very close to it. And, sitting there and just listening to the water go by, it's ironic how soothing I find the sound of water, especially flowing water, not necessarily just beach waves if I'm listening to ambient sounds. So I think that with the amount of renewal I've had to do in my life, I think I've had to accept a role. Just, I guess maybe accepting that life is like a river. Like it's just flowing. It's just constantly moving. It's constantly going. Um,
Yeah.
even if you find yourself stagnant, you're in the river of it. You're in the river of life. So when I think of a fountain in that, I think of a fountain as something that actually draws people near, right? Something that makes people come not only nearer and sit and enjoy, if you just think about your average fountain in a park or the Bellagio or anything, but I think also it brings people to share certain things about themselves. I mean, you mentioned the word well, so I'm thinking wishing well. When I think of fountain, I think of people, flipping pennies and quarters and everything and making wishes. And, here I am, again, lucky enough to be able to make money with a camera, by taking photos of people's hopes and dreams, their families, but also um, as a coach, people really give me a lot of personal things, and I think in that way, it's kind of a wishing well or flipping a coin into a fountain type situation.
Yeah, I like that. So I
Thank
take
you.
it you like the meaning.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay,
I have a newfound respect for the meaning.
good.
I've never delved that deep into it, but
Good. That's the whole point of this podcast.
yeah,
I love
this
it.
is fantastic. Thank you for that. That was a gift that you just gave me. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I am curious, when did you first look up the meaning of your name? Were you little, like a kid, or was it just like recently?
No, I this was probably 2005, 2006-ish. I
Okay.
was a server at a restaurant. It was towards Easter. I do remember that. And walked up, greet the table. The typical spiel. Hi, I'm Dathan. I'm your server today. This, that, the other. And this person said, "Oh, I really like your name." I said, "Thank you." He says, "Do you know where it came from?" And my answer was just something cheeky at the time, it was something sarcastic about my parents and, you know, just trying to be unique, tail end of the 70s,
Mhm.
trying to come out with a unique black name. Uh, and then she gave me some insight that really surprised me. And she said, "No, it's biblical." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, it's biblical." I said, "No way, get out of here." So she asked if I had read the Bible. At that point in my life, I'm like, "No." Um, got other cool things to be doing. But the she said, "Hey, have you ever watched the Ten Commandments?" I said, "Yeah, I've seen the Ten Commandments." She said, "Well, okay. When you watch the Ten Commandments, this weekend or whenever Easter was coming up in a short little bit, pay attention." He wouldn't tell me who he was because she really wanted me to watch it. So I watched it, and then I found out who Dathan was, and I don't know. I was nonplussed.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was really surprised that I'm named after him. That that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it still sits a little funny with me,
Hmm.
but um as I understand it, uh he was what, a spy, an
Hmm.
overseer for the Egyptians. Um I don't know, almost a traitor, right? Like he was just duplicitous. And even worse, when I watched, the full movie and saw like his total arc, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is like not cool at all." Why
Hmm.
why did I get this name? So for any of the listeners who don't know about Dathan, let me just enlighten you really quickly. Dathan was a spy. Please correct me, by the way, Chema, but he
Yeah,
was
I
an
don't know too
overseer. He's a
much.
spy. He was just corrupt. So the Pharaoh gave him, different privileges for this duplicity, right? But here's the worst part. Moses, generally speaking, I don't even say generally speaking. Like Moses is like the hero of the Bible, right? He's the guy. And I don't know why, but Dathan just antagonized the hell out of this guy. Not only Dathan, but then Dathan got his family and his brother specifically, I think, to really just give this guy a hard time. He was just heckling him all the time. And the part that I think makes me laugh the most, and I shouldn't say laugh because this is serious business for a lot of people. Um, the Bible, um, Moses gets them across the Red Sea, which is now reformed after being parted and it drowned a bunch of people. Moses gets the group to safety. He goes up the mountain to receive the Ten Commandments. And, there's the lightning, it's making the Ten Commandments on these big, stone tablets. And Dathan, for whatever reason, uh, just gets everyone up in arms about, like, "Hey, where's your boy at?" And he gets everyone worshiping the golden calf. Moses comes down, and I normally have like a much more humorous take on this because I'm just kind of a physical guy. But Moses comes down, sees like this rabble rousing, and he throws a tablet at Dathan, and and then the earth swallows Dathan and his crew. his whole
Wow.
family. So
Wow.
I looked it up in the Bible, and my narrative is not too far off from like what it actually says that a hole opened up. So
Hmm.
the humorous little kind of end of the story that I typically give is that, that's why I avoid potholes and sidewalk cracks. But you
Well,
might
isn't
say I'm
it
a teeny bit irreverent about the Bible.
yeah, isn't it ironic though that the name means fountain and sometimes out of the earth comes, water fountains wherever there's like, where somebody could fall in and die like he did in terms of
Yeah,
I thought that was very
yeah,
interesting when you were
yeah,
describing that. I was thinking of that.
yeah. That is a unique angle. That's a very unique angle. Um, and in the Bible, I think more so now, everyone's name back then carried a certain weight and meaning, and it was given with a lot more intentionality than we do
Hmm.
now, right?
Yes.
We have kids and we scroll through whatever baby books or whatever website to find the one. Generally speaking, you're looking for one that just rolls off the tongue well enough to really grab some likes on TikTok or, on Facebook. It wasn't that way then. There was really deep meaning to it. So I think what I have to be mindful of is that Dathan didn't Dathan didn't originate as a bad guy, right?
Hmm.
Like he was a baby, they gave him a name, and this is what it meant. And he ended up being the way he was. So I do need to give him a break, and even myself or my parents for giving me the name that plenty of people have names of that bad people before them have not maybe lived up to. I guess I'm not saying it the
Yeah.
right way, but I think you know what I'm saying. There are plenty
Yeah.
of other Jamas out there in the world, whether you've met them or not, and they've done some like bad things. But that
Yeah.
doesn't make you bad.
Yeah.
So I need to, kind of cut myself some slack on that, or cut my parents some slack on that one. But
Yeah. Everyone chooses their own path. So,
yeah, exactly. Dathan was just, I think the irony for me is, at least from what I know, there's not necessarily a portion of the Bible that gives you Dathan's origin story. So you only really hear about the bad part. And
yeah.
I'm not my mom passed away, and I'm not close with my dad at all. So I don't know why they chose that name. It's interesting to me.
Okay. That answers the third question. So, you don't know why your parents chose your name.
No idea. No
Okay.
idea.
All right. All
But I
good.
have a crazy story. There's a guy that I picked up like 3 days ago. Um, and I pull up. Hey, how you doing? Such and such. My name's Dathan. Let me know how I can, make the ride more comfortable for you. And he says, I wanted to make sure that your name was pronounced that way. And I said, yeah, you pronounce it perfectly. And he said, uh, there's only one other Dathan that I know, and it's not a good name for me. So for like 30 minutes, we talked about the role of Dathan in his life, and it was not a great story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his dad's name is Dathan, and this guy just had a really rough childhood. But I
Wow.
just thought it was ironic that I think I told you guys that yeah, met like maybe two other Dathans, and
Yeah.
that was that. And then one of those Dathans was on Dateline. That was weird. And then now to meet this passenger with another kind of negative connection to the name Dathan. Man, I'm
Yeah.
drifting back into that thing. I really got to give myself some slack.
That's all right.
Just
Well,
totally kidding. Totally kidding. But it is interesting though that
yeah.
it was just ironic the timing of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think, just to kind of round this out, I think that once you truly do, if you do know another person with your name and you know that this person, has made such and such a mistake or whatever, they lived completely differently than you. I think depending on who you are and how you accept information and how you learn from things, you can really use it as a really good tool, as like a reminder and be like, that is not who I want to be. That is not who I am. And that is going to be also another reminder for me to strive to be a specific way that you want to be. So I think you can use it as like a good, like, just reminder that that's not who you are. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I have such a unique name, and I think that that's why I can, be a little bit self-deprecating about it. But,
yeah.
generally, I actually really do enjoy my name.
Have you ever wanted to change it or
That's an
ever had
interesting
the thought,
question.
like, have you ever had the thought, I wish I had a different name?
That's exactly what I was hinging on. I've
Okay.
I've not necessarily wanted to change it. I've never looked into the process or anything like that. I know that it's pretty easy to do, but no. As an adult, no.
Hmm.
As a child, yes. Going
Yeah.
through school because of my last name, and my last name is Kitchens. I don't mind saying that on a I don't mind saying that. But Dathan Kitchens, um, kids called me Bacon, and the interesting thing about that, so my last name is Kitchens, but my grandmother's last name was Plummer, and she was our legal guardian. So when you would see Dorothy Plummer, and then people put those things together, um, Bacon, it was just closely related to kitchen, right? Kids are just weird, and we just find anything that we can latch onto that's funny. It didn't hurt or anything like that. It was I yucked it up with the rest of them, but it was also the mispronunciations nonstop, right?
Hmm.
Um, I grew up, in Colorado Springs in the '80s, and while it's not, come to find out, it's not a deeply ethnic name to begin with, but in the grand scheme of things in the Black community, it's not a very um, unique or deeply customized name, if you will.
Hmm.
But it still felt really out of place for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was often one of the only Black children in a classroom. Um, and there were times that I wish that I don't know, had a quote regular name.
Yeah.
But
If you were, oh, go ahead.
I think that that was just maybe a fleeting feeling coming off of um, you know maybe too much of a ribbing session or an overly intense ribbing session about my name. Um, the last name situation didn't have much to do with my first name, but I think it was just still attached to this thing that I had no that I played no role in, right? I didn't choose
Yeah.
my last name, didn't choose my first name, but here we are, and we're laughing about my name. So I started going by D really early, um, and then kind of carrying that sensitivity early into my professional career. I remember ordering business cards, and I didn't want Dathan to be the thing that got in the way of doing business. So on my business cards, I actually put my first and middle initial,
Oh,
DL,
wow.
and then my last name. I remember there's a woman in the office that raised a stink, and I was like, "Well, look at this comedian, DL Hewley," and she's like, "Yeah, you're not a comedian." So my manager was cool with it in the end, but um, I'm okay with it now. I've long been
Yeah.
okay with it.
It's good. Love it. Well, and if you were forced to change your first name, is there a certain name that you really like that you would choose?
Ooh, a lot of powerful names out there. My first, my first reaction is to say that might be the day I die because I don't know like what whoever's holding me hostage and forcing me at gunpoint. Not that you said gunpoint, I said it, but whoever's forcing me to change my name, I might just have to say dealer's choice, man. What do you want to
Mm.
call me? You hold all the cards here, right?
Yeah.
But if it was just like, hey, man, you know, who knows what President Trump will sign an executive order for? So let's just say that he writes an executive order that anyone named Dathan has to change their name by blank day. Um, Maybe I'm a fountain of creative ideas or creative scenarios here, but um, I think I would defer to my wife and other people who are really close to me and ask them what their thoughts are.
All right. That's an answer. That works.
I wonder is I haven't listened to all of the podcast episodes, but um,
Mhm.
is there anybody else that's had an answer that was like, no?
There's been quite a few men who have said, no, I wouldn't change my name. And so I'm like,
That
okay. And then a lot of people choose
executive
their
order be
middle name.
damned. Not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a common response is I'll choose my middle name. And it's because you're also kind of comfortable and familiar with your middle name. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
LeVar does have a nice ring to it, but people have often asked me about LeVar Burton. Um, Younger people aren't going to know who this guy is. Well, maybe they will, reading Rainbow, but he was just like I don't know, he was like he's I don't want to say a sex symbol, but he was just an all-around great Hollywood actor, and he was on a really big miniseries in the early '80s. But no, LeVar, I use it as my last name in certain business aspects, but no, I don't think I'd go with my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah,
All good.
that's a great question, though. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I know that you said that your first name has been mispronounced. And when you were younger, what kind of emotions did you feel when your name was mispronounced?
I think the I think embarrassment,
Hmm.
which is so interesting because why should I be embarrassed? I didn't do anything wrong here.
Right?
But I do think it was embarrassment that I didn't have. I think I felt embarrassment that teachers or whoever was calling on me, usually was a substitute or a teacher, like, after school just started. And, you know, this is when roll call is like, they're just calling your name out and you're saying here. And it always happened the same way. I have such vivid memories of this. Benjamin, Jacob, Cody, D- that, yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm right over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You knew when they got to your name, and it just felt
I understand.
ridiculous.
Mhm.
You definitely do. It,
Yeah.
it just seemed ridiculous every single time. So the same thing happened, of course, in college classrooms. They were just much larger, and yeah, by then, I was clicking on all cylinders, and I still had no reason to kind of feel that emotion, but it was kind of once again the same thing. First couple of days of the semester, professors trying to get to know everybody in this auditorium, and you're raising your hand when your name is called. So yeah, I think embarrassment. The the upside is that during the telemarketing age, you just always knew when someone was calling who you didn't have any need to do business with, right?
Yeah.
As you pick up the phone, they're like, "Hi, can I speak to?" You can just hang up.
Yep.
And the reason why, for the listeners, there's an I in my name. It's Daithan. That I throws everyone off. They're like the Y in your name, like you were saying, like people see Jamie.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe they're just kind of quickly scanning the letters, but that I throws everyone off. And I just think it's like, yeah, it's like, paint or trail. It AI makes the A sound. So day
Yeah.
thin. But I get diathin, diton,
Mhm.
Daithian. That's the one that's the one that I think just incenses me the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going back just a little while, that was another way, like that was more fuel to the fire of like jokes that my friends would then adopt. It'd be like, hey, Daithian, or hey, alien, or, it'd be something like that over lunch or recess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not fun as a kid. I think when you do grow into an adult and you become more comfortable with yourself, and
Hmm.
depending on how much work you've done to be comfortable with yourself, I think a part of owning your name and owning who you are with the name versus anybody outside of your circle of control not knowing your name, you
Sure.
could just not give a rip, about like
Yeah,
um just how what people say because, that's them and you're you and you can only control your reaction. So,
that's
I
exactly right.
yeah.
That is very, very true. Now there is something that I think a source of shame that I won't say shame again. That's a very powerful word, but I would say a concern I had, kind of going back to the whole business card thing. There was this long held, maybe even like an urban legend that more ethnic sounding names did poorer in life, right?
Hmm.
Um,
There's a research
it,
study on that. It's
there
crazy.
is, yeah, it is. So Freakonomics, it's
Yeah.
covered in the book Freakonomics, right? If
Yeah.
for readers that are out there, um, Dubner and Levitt, I'll get their first names mixed up. I know there's a Steve. They might both be Steves, but nonetheless, the that's real. Let's just be honest about it, right? Like we all make snap judgments. I think it's ridiculous that it's done to the extent that it is, but my name is, in the grand scheme of things, not the most unique out there, right?
Hmm.
If I am ever subjected to that bias coming out, first off, thank you. I wouldn't want to work for you or be around you to begin with. So thank you for self-selecting yourself out, because you're apparently just not a great person like you. I also won't cuss on your podcast, but there's I have other names I would call them, but
I try to keep it clean. I've had
I
one episode
noticed.
where I had to put explicit.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna
You're good. You're good.
keep it clean. The so that's been a concern, so much so that with my photography, look, my name, I don't use my full name with my photography because it just doesn't roll off the tongue very well. That's one.
Hmm.
um we have this concept of personal brand, right?
Yeah.
And I wish that I didn't have to pay that much attention to my name, whether it's either of my businesses or just the way I roll through life. But I'd be lying if I did. I'd be lying if I didn't admit that. Yeah, I frequently have to weigh how my name is going to land with people, like the totality of my name, my first name and last name, because they're both
Yeah.
unique.
Hmm.
So there is that. But I'm doing okay in life. I'm doing all right in life. I haven't been, you know, people haven't given me too much of a price to pay if they don't like my name.
Love it.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
feel like I know that I'm on a podcast, and I know that I tend to be a little bit verbose, but there's so many questions that I kind of want to reflect back to you. This
Yeah.
this last one being one of them. Um,
Okay. Go for it.
so have you, as far as wanting to change your name, have you
Hmm.
ever wanted to change your name? I
Yeah.
remember listening to
So,
some of this and the podcast that I listened to, but I want to open it back up.
yeah, I distinctly remember, like, just like, yeah, growing up every single school year at the beginning, the teacher mispronouncing it and just not liking that it was unique and different. And then when I got to high school, I remember, like, my parents, they saved up, they took my sister and I to Europe for a few weeks on vacation. And I remembered this because of where I was. I don't know why. Like, we were with a group of people traveling, and the only requirement was that they had to speak English. But none of them could pronounce my name. We got to know everybody. And so I think I was just like, we were standing on the London Bridge. I was next to my mom, and I was like, I think I'm going to change my name to my middle name, Lynn, Lynn. I was like, I like Lynn. It's simple. Like, I'm just tired of this, like unique, different name. And, I never went through with it, but I thought I like was seriously considering it. But now, especially over the last few years, I love my name because I know the meaning and because it really propels me to embrace who I am and my defaults and my purpose and like live it out to the fullest. And I would never change my name now. So,
I do have to admit that since that one, that's powerful. Let me first acknowledge that. That really is incredible. And it immediately took me back to the, episode that I listened to where you really first introduced that. I think that that might be this moment for me because
mhm.
um, I had never put that much stock into it besides maybe just using it for some comic relief or, lightning. What maybe, maybe I was lightening it because it felt awkward, right? I mean, how
Mhm.
many people walk up and they're like, "Hi, I'm Melissa," and then you're like, "Yuck, yuck, 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 yuck." Have to make some joke to lighten the load. Um, but yeah, maybe I've been carrying a, I don't know, maybe guilt or shame, or I don't know what it is. I'm trying to identify the emotion. I'll sit with it for a while after the call, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to, I don't know if I need to offer up a concession about my name anymore, which is not something I expected to feel as I was gearing up for this podcast.
Mm. I love that.
I
That's
truly
so
feel like, okay, yeah, okay, the guy's in the Bible. Who cares? And this
yeah.
is what the character was, but let's talk about the meaning. So interesting. I've not been able to see um, the strength of the name because I've been focusing on this very shallow dimension of the name. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a folly. That's a folly. But this is great because you know this is me being able to change my focus and um, and change an aspect of my life that I've had my whole life. It literally defines you. Your name does define you, like it or not.
Yeah. And I like, and this is a perfect segue into my second to last question, because I will say this before you answer that question. Like, I think it's truly, I talk to a lot of people in my job and every day, work with a ton of people. I love people. I love meeting new people. But it's honestly very rare to meet somebody who just gives you some really good positive energy and like just like really like you step away and you're like, wow, like that was so refreshing, you know? And I will say that that's when I first met you, like, and you were telling me more about yourself and, like, we were just conversing back and forth. I mean, I will know you because I know the meaning of your name and I will always remember Dathan because like you're like a fountain abundance of life and positivity and just good energy. And so like I think it's such a positive meaning for
Thank you
sure.
so much. I am certainly going to lean into that. I've just never, it's so crazy. We live in this, not just the information age, but vast troves of information. And I have, with my ADHD brain, man, I go on some rabbit holes. Like Wikipedia is my nemesis. If there's a link, I will click it. I have read a lot about the Bible for reasons I'm sure we'll get into shortly. I've just done a lot of research around that, but my name has just never been a part of that.
Mhm.
I've now spent more time in this 55 minutes talking about my name than I have in all 48 years of my life combined.
Yeah.
So it
Good.
is it's something that I'm going to lean into and really look at how I do live up to the name because I do think that that is important.
Definitely.
You had mentioned that you think everything happens for a reason, and we differ on that slightly due to our worldview, the difference in our worldview. I believe in roughly the same thing, but I believe that with enough time having passed and enough perspective having been gained, you can find a really good reason for everything that's happened.
Yeah.
That's what I've adopted in my life, and I'm now looking back at me being born Tuesday, September 13th, 1977, and I now think I'm starting to find a good reason uh, why I was given the name Dathan
Mm.
versus the question. that was posed before. Do you know why your parents named you that way,
Yeah.
or named you that? I think I'm putting a reason to it now.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, go you. This is your doing.
Awesome. Well, that brings,
You're doing good work
I'm
out here.
smiling.
You
This
are.
is
You're doing
good.
great work out here.
Awesome. Well, and I am curious, like, do you, and you can have any answer you want, do you think that the meaning of your name has any relevance on the way that you act or the way that you see the world around you? And if so, how?
So interestingly enough, you know, yes, whether through coincidence, you know, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, but yeah, I do think that there are certain attributes of our name that we can that'll resonate with us. Like I joke about Dathan's role about being duplicitous and kind of underhanded, but what I will give Dathan credit for is that look, man, dude was a rebel and he was challenging Moses, and I don't think challenge is always bad. Um, the fact that I laugh and joke about, who he was in the Bible is only because it didn't work out in his favor. But there are plenty of rebels out there who have challenged convention or challenged power, and they, whether they prevailed or not, right? They still shifted the narrative or shifted people's beliefs about things, and maybe it was that was the thing that snowballed it, right? Isn't that how every revolution has started? Someone just challenging um, the common beliefs or common practices. So I think the world has always needed a rebel. That's the only way that we've made progress on anything is someone coming in and saying, whoa, 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 whoa,
Hmm.
let's stop and interrogate this whole thing for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And so I am certainly that guy. Um, I don't have a problem at all challenging things that aren't right.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm also always going to stand up for people.
Yeah.
I will stand up and protect people. And we spoke briefly about it, but there was some hardship around an employment situation, and it was a really big company that you know I had to take to task for not doing the right thing, and it was a lot of years, right? Like it was like 4 years from start to finish. And I don't know how
Mm.
I found the fortitude to go through with it and stay the course and be as organized as I was, but yeah, somehow I did. So I don't know, maybe that is my namesake coming out in interesting ways, but I do believe that it was I do believe that that rebel nature, and again, I know I'm looking more at the action of one Dathan versus the actual meaning, the origin of the name, but
Hmm.
it's the most popular Dathan, the most notable Dathan out there. So I am going to that. But I think that as a spring, sure, as a well, um, water is what cleanses away. It cleanses things,
Yeah.
and it dissolves things. It can scour thousands of years of rock. I mean, look at the Grand Canyon. So yeah, I think major change can start with a small spring or fountain. We've got Old Faithful, right? People travel out there to see it. It's just beautiful. So yeah, I don't want to get too long-winded.
Okay. I love the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, my last question.
Okay,
So, when I first started this podcast about a year and a half ago, I wanted to see what books were saying about the meaning of names. And I thought, okay, what's the best-selling book of all time? Happens to be the Bible. And there's actually a lot of references where names, it says that, somebody changed their name or Jesus changed somebody's name or God changed somebody's name. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think overall, like, what do you think the significance is of the act of someone's name being changed, why that was even mentioned?
sure. You know, the first part of the answer is I don't know.
It's
Um,
okay.
but I have a hunch. Um, as I said earlier, I think that, these names originated at a time where, the population obviously was much smaller than it is now. And names were given, in my understanding, they served almost a utilitarian purpose, right? Um, and I do think that at the time they were just as aspirational as names tend to be today. We do tend to give our names children that signify a certain future state we would like them to have, or what they mean to us now. So I think it may have been that case then. In my journey to try to understand the Bible, um, I did come across some of those name changes, and I just took them to mean that they were like almost promoted. Like your status has changed
Mhm.
based on this thing that has now happened. You are now this, and you know, I think that that was significant back then. We do a form of it today, though.
Mhm.
When you're married, you go from being a Ms. to a Mrs. And um, we do this with titles. Just being able to put initials behind our name of certifications and degrees. So I don't think it's done to uh, the same magnitude of changing someone's first name, into a derivative of it. But I do think that it's symbolic. But I wonder if those people actually, if it changed them.
Yeah, I know. I would love to ask them, even though I can't.
Yeah,
But like that word promoted, oh, I feel like that is spot on. Promoted for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I think it's a promotion, right?
Yeah.
But I think in that way, that is really what I'm trying to say, and that those names then were a little bit more titular, right? They denoted a title,
Hmm.
and there were certain names, maybe not necessarily in uh, the area of the Bible that, maybe I don't know much about the Bible, but what I will say is I know that there are certain names in medieval times that were reserved for um, royalty, and there were other names that basically you only give peasants, right?
Um,
And uh, I think that when you have done something in the Bible that elevated your stature, I can see how it was appropriate to now say, well, wait a minute, she's bigger than we thought she was. She has risen to the challenge, and she deserves a name um, more appropriate for the role she played in this major event, or this
yeah,
cataclysmic event, whatever that was.
totally agree.
Yeah,
I like it.
thank you.
Well, those are
Thank
all
you.
my questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, I mean, there's gobs of them, but I've seen how long most of your podcasts run, and I don't want to make your listeners, sit through such a long conversation. But I would talk to you for hours. This is so
Oh,
fascinating to me. I'm
okay.
just This is just such a cool conversation. I was trying to kind of go through my mental Rolodex of all the questions I do have, and there's just so many. I
Yeah.
do want to give you. I want to give you some. I have to say this. Um, man, as a husband, as a dad, to two little girls, um, you have such a powerful story that the origin of that story could have taken you so many places, yet you were here. And I say that because my mom really went down the dark path of addiction, and just she's had a very painful life based on the things that you went through. The pain. that you discussed that you started talking about, during COVID. I was just so moved by that because um, women often choose not to speak about those things because yes, it's deeply personal, but we've also seen this play out on a large stage with politics. You know, women who have been assaulted, we say, well, why didn't you come forward sooner? Well, I mean, well, were you going to believe him to begin with? Right.
Hmm.
I have that deeply personal story of my mom not being believed for years as she
Mm.
was, sexually assaulted by a family member. Um, and, having the evidence of what it does, how it derails a young life. I'm just, I'm going to say this, and I don't know how it's going to sit with you, but I'm really, really proud of you. It takes someone of incredible strength and fortitude to be able to do what you're doing and to own it and to turn it into to make the pain count for something bigger. And I never would have thought that discussing someone's name this in depth with them could change their life. But wow, you really are. So I'm proud of you, and just thank you for seizing on that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it took me a very long time to be able to speak it out loud and then speak it out loud to other people.
Mhm.
And yeah, I definitely feel as though like I've I've made something very horrible turn into something that is helping other people. So if I can bring purpose to something, no matter what it is or how bad it was, I think that's all that matters. And it's yeah, it's thank you. I appreciate your kind words.
You're welcome. You've earned them.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe or follow the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps me continue bringing you meaningful conversations with remarkable guests. Don't forget to tune in next time for more insightful discussions and inspiring stories. Until then, thank you for listening and keep striving to make a positive impact wherever you are. And don't forget to tap into the meaning of your own name to find a deeper sense of confidence in your purpose.